Hello, you guys, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. My name is Christabel, the original Power Ranger princess, but on this channel, I am Princess Power Ranger. So, I just wanted to make just a video, kind of a follow-up video, but I wanted to talk about my experience as, a black transgender South African living, or rather working in Thailand. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to title this, being a transgender teacher in Thailand, and what that's been like. So I think for me, I've always wanted to be a teacher. I've always wanted to, I've always wanted to work in a school. One of my most favorite movies growing up was Matilda. And I kind of wanted to be like Miss Honey. You know what I mean? Like the teacher who is there, who would like help you see your light. But living in South Africa and being a transgender person, I'll never forget, I came back from the United States of America, where I had worked as a camp counselor a year before college. And after working as a camp counselor, I knew that I wanted to work in education. And, my mom is a teacher and my grandparents are teachers. But despite all of that, my family was really against me going into education. So I ended up studying tourism management instead. But it's so weird because even after I graduated, I remember the year that I was my last year in college, right? When everyone was stressed and stuff, I was extra stressed because I was thinking, no one would hire me and I would have to work on the streets or something. And all of those fears, all of those fears back in college just, oh my gosh, they caused me so much anxiety. So before I graduate, I ended up finding an online teaching job because I figured, it might be easier being a trans person working online, Now, with that job, I hated the company, but the actual experience was just so much fun. And I started doing this, teaching English way back in 2015. So when I first got into it, I loved how I was getting to meet people from all across the world and really help them, That's kind of what drew me to it. So I stopped doing that and I ended up working in an online casino. But I'm still drawn back into English teaching. So I decided that I was gonna research, ways that I could teach abroad. So I realized that as a South African, as a South African who held a degree, I could simply do my ESL, which is teaching English as a secondary language, or I could do my PGSC, which would require me going back to college. So I opted to do my ESL, and yeah, that's when I started really considering Thailand, teaching there. Now, Thailand, you're not going to make as much money as you would in China or in Korea or in Hong Kong. You're not going to make as much money. But what drew me to Thailand initially was the fact that Thailand was renowned for Katoi, or ladyboys, transgender women. And I felt that being trans myself, it would help me, or it would be easier for me to be accepted in a society like this. I also loved the fact that it was a Buddhist country, and it just, Thailand looks so exotic and pretty in pictures, like, no joke. So I bring myself over here, and I first started teaching in the south of Thailand, in a city called Phuket. So that experience was actually so much fun. It was really stressful, but a lot of fun. I was teaching at a high school that had originally been, predominantly a girls-only school, and they started letting boys in like 1995. So the school was like 90%, female. And it was enormous. I mean, I taught 4 grade 8 classes. No, I taught 4 grade 6 classes and 6 grade 8 classes. And just to put that into perspective, there were like 40 to 45 kids in my class. So I came to Thailand through an agency, which turned out to be a horrible agency. But I get the call for the interview. I fly down to Phuket, because at the time I was in the city of Chiang Mai. Fly down to Phuket. I have the interview, and I have to do a demo in front of an entire class of 8th grade girls and, my future coworkers. I was so scared, y'all, and I felt like I had totally, messed up. But believe it or not, they end up, hiring my ass. Now, this was around November time. So this is one of the busiest times of the school year in Thailand. Being a transgender woman, one of my biggest fears was, being a teacher, would I get outed? Would I get made fun of? Would any of those things happen? And I can honestly say in the first school that I taught at, none of that ever happened. My coworkers, we may have had beef about some other things, but they stood with me and supported me. I'll never forget telling my actual boss, because the school is so big that there were different levels of management. But I told my boss, who was a female, a Thai woman, that I was transgender, and she was so shocked, and she was surprised because she didn't think that I was, and she was so sweet about it. She was like, we have lots of trans people here, but I'll keep your secret. I'm like, girl, this ain't been a secret. What secret? But I loved that. What was interesting, though, was that there were no trans children. At no point as a teacher did I encounter children who identified as a gender different from their own. Now, were there kids who seemed gay or a little bit flamboyant? They were. I mean, the most popular kid in the 12th grade was this fabulous, boy. And he was super gay, and he was part of a group that called themselves the Pretty Girls. And I just loved his energy. But what I found out is that the whole transgender thing, even when kids may have those feelings, it's heavily discouraged, at least within the school system that I was in. It's discouraged for them to transition that early. So I didn't come across any trans kids, which I thought was so interesting because, I had coworkers that were trans. There was the lady at the canteen up there, it was everywhere. And I'll never forget one of my favorite classes. Now, the classes were each grade, they'd be like 10 classes per grade. And I was teaching one of the math and science grades, or one of the math and science classes. And we were talking about different clothing articles. Now, these kids, I loved teaching that class because they were really good at English. And even the ones who weren't, like this one student, tell me why this girl couldn't speak a word of English, but her and me, we were like this. If I needed something explained, her Thai self would understand me, and she was my spokesperson. So I'm teaching this class about clothing items, and I show them different clothing items, like a blouse, a skirt, and I'm like, who wears this? And I'll never forget the kids, because they're 14 at this stage. They're looking at each other, and they're kind of like, women usually wear it. And this one boy, he picks up his hand, and he's like, well, it's for women, but anyone can wear it depending on your feeling. And I left it at that, you know what I mean? I feel like as an educator, it's important for you rather to teach what you were called to teach in the class, which is English, and keep any other ideologies aside, but create a space in the classroom where all children know that, their voices and their opinions are valuable. One thing that I knew that I would never do is make my transness the center of my teaching job. I think so many people take their transness and that becomes the center, the be-all and end-all of who they are. And there's nothing wrong in celebrating that, but we gotta be demure in these places. We gotta be. The kids were really, really amazing. I have to say, I was impressed with how respectful Thai kids were. Every morning, they get up and they're like, good morning, teacher, and then at the end of the day, they're like, thank you, teacher. And those kids, especially the high school kids, when I first taught, the first school that I taught at, they really just, those kids just touch my heart in ways that they will never know. It's funny because I actually, now I was only teaching there for 3 months, and the following year I teach at another school now. I bumped into one of my 12th grade pupils at the hospital, and my God, it was so amazing seeing her and knowing that, she was doing her thing in university. And that's what I wanted to be, I wanted to go in there and kind of help guide them and help them be the best versions of themselves that they could have possibly ever been. Teaching in Thailand at a Thai school is incredibly, it's a lot of hard work. Don't buy the hype that you're going to come here and it's going to be coconuts at the beach all day. One of my biggest frustrations was in the school that I worked at. Everything operated according to a system that I thought was, outdated. We had to write down, the names of the kids in our classes, write down their, all of their scores. There had to be a physical handwritten copy. Now, if you're teaching 10 classes, the average being 400, you realize that, this stuff, we can do this online on the computer. Come on now. So that was frustrating a little bit. And I think, coming to Phuket, that being the first school I was teaching at, I was fresh off the plane, still excited about the country, wanting to really enjoy myself. I would urge all people wanting to teach in Thailand, first come for a holiday. Come for, 3 to 6 months. Come for 3 months on a holiday. Get that holiday buzz out of your system. Find the best location and then jump into teaching, because what I can tell you is that in Thai schools, as a teacher, you do work incredibly hard. I love how, in terms of, in the first school, I never experienced any type of transphobia. It just did not exist. I was supported, I was encouraged. However, one thing you need to know about Thai society is that not everything that you see you should just take at face value. People will, surprise you with their warmth and their kindness, but you need to understand that in Thailand, especially in a workplace, people gossip like you're in high school. So, the first school that I taught at was absolutely incredible. I had a wonderful time, and those kids forever touched my heart. I only taught there for about 4 months, and I realized that if I was going to be a good teacher here in Thailand, it was important for me to teach it was important for me not to teach, but rather to learn Thai, to study the culture, to learn more about Buddhism, so that I could avoid cultural misunderstandings. There are so many cultural misunderstandings that you experience with Thai people, especially if you didn't grow up here and you haven't lived here your entire life. So there were a lot of things that I had to learn. I was first very impressed at how well behaved all of the kids were. But then that saddened me at the same time, because it felt, especially with the older kids, it felt that by the end of the 12-year school system, that their voices really had been stifled out. The one thing that surprised me was the emphasis that is placed on religiosity here, which is a beautiful thing. It really, really is a beautiful thing, but it really surprised me with the workload that a lot of Thai kids have, and the fact that they are still so sweet and so respectful. I think the world can really learn so much, but in the same time, I think it's important, just from my own observations, that Thai kids are taught to have a voice and to say what they need to say. I loved teaching at my first school. It was a chaotic experience. I was, dropped right in the middle. But the reason I loved it was because I taught the most amazing kids. So to all those kids that I taught, I love you all so much. Some of y'all kept me laughing. Thank you for showing me that I could be a teacher, believe it or not. And to anyone thinking of teaching in Thailand or in Asia, what are you waiting for? Give it a shot. You never know. And if you're afraid, thinking that you being trans is going to stand against you. I want you to know overall in Thai society, and I'm not talking about foreigners here, I'm talking about Thai people. It's not like anywhere else in the world. Yes, transphobia exists, but it is not the monster that it is in other countries. And you too can have a chance at, like having a career and making yourself proud. Because it's not only about going off to foreign countries and taking pictures, it's about proving something to yourself. That, you're the girl that can travel the world. You're the girl that can prove everyone wrong. Anyway, so if you're thinking of being a teacher, I hope this video helped. I'm going to be making another video talking about some of my challenges, and I'm going to be making some other videos too. So thank you so much for watching, you guys! Alright, bye.